Greetings and welcome, Dagma. We greatly appreciate your leadership. And as always, in starting this interview, we always begin with a few things by acknowledging our original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors, as we were speaking just a little bit earlier. We acknowledged all those that toiled with compassion, without compassion and compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and the community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on, including you and what you are doing. And as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So with this, we're going to move forward. And I would like to see if you would be please share with us some of your remarkable work.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So it is really a pleasure to be here, and I love what Setsi is doing. I mean, I love Victor and all of his advocacy for the Black community. It's just amazing. For me, I'm in the housing space. I think we are one of the only Black-led, Black-focused, Black-serving charity organizations, I think throughout Canada, that is addressing the issue of Black youth experiencing or at risk of homelessness. I will say that this is a big undertaking because in Canada right now, we are faced with a housing crisis that have been ongoing for years. And in 2023, we only see that problem escalating. So it's becoming more and more challenging to be able to acquire spaces. And REST focuses on youth who are Black, youth also from the Indigenous and the racialized community, and they are more marginalized than a lot of groups, and in fact, 200 times more likely to face homelessness given the amalgamation of forces against them. And when we talk about amalgamation of forces, we're talking about things like, systematic discrimination, scarcity, unaffordability, stigma that is affiliated with housing. And our organization, the way we respond to this crisis is by really coming alongside youth in that time of their vulnerability, in that time of their trauma, and working with them by connecting and facilitating housing with community landlords, individuals in the community who have spaces, and that can look like a room, and that can look like a basement, and that they are able to rent out those spaces for our youth. Now, the reason that this is important, it's because, like I said, one, our client population is discriminated against in the market, not only because of the ethnicity, but also because of the age. And there are a lot of other things that landlords do require in order to give out their spaces. And so, like, for example, landlords would require employment references, landlords would require first and last rent, landlords would require sometimes a guarantor. And most of the young people that we work with do not have like family supports or services. Our youth are coming from foster care. They age out of foster care and they do not have a space to stay. Some of our youth are lone rangers, immigrants into this country. Take, for example, we were dealing with a case of a young lady at 13 years. Her parents from Afghanistan put her on a plane and sent her to Canada, and she had no connection whatsoever with her family. She landed in Canada as a lone immigrant. She was drafted into foster care, and she got sent to us when she was aging out of foster care to help connect her with housing. So that's just one of the circumstances that youth are faced with. However, finding housing for youth is not enough. We know that. Because of the trauma, because of the circumstances that create that homelessness, we know that youth are best served by providing the extensive wraparound support services to help them move towards a more positive path of independence, or even to just help them sustain the independent housing or the independent living. So what that means for us is every young person coming for our doors gets connected with a case manager. They create a care plan. There's goal setting based on, what are the aspirations of that youth. Some of them it's higher education. Some of them is entrepreneurship. Some of them, they may want to actually get into the trades. And so we create those care plans. We do the goal setting and we work alongside alongside of them to help them to achieve their goals. And that is also we also provide mental health support and counseling, educational support. And a big piece also is really the financial or the welfare support. It's so important because of the fact that many of the youth coming into our program do not have the financial readiness to be able to afford housing given the current economic climate that we're in. We're talking about grade 12s having to pay $1,000 plus a month for a shared room in a living space. And that's highly unaffordable. At grade 12, they're focusing on the grade 12 diploma and having that burden and that responsibility. And some of them may just have to have a part-time job, a minimum wage job that just does not give them the economic empowerment to be able to afford a place to stay. And so how REST helps with that is we provide subsidies thanks to the generous donations of our partners and our funders and just normal people from the community who are compassionate about the cause who gives. We also provide food subsidy because we do not want to put young people in a case where they have to choose rent over food. And many of the youth that we serve, that's the circumstance. They're also faced with food insecurity. So it's really poverty that we deal with. And as an agency, I'm just so glad that I have an opportunity to be able to partner with young people at one of the most vulnerable stages of their life and be able to be a solution and provide some hope, all right? Some hope, and also give them a launching pad to a better future, because housing is a basic human right. Not being housed and not having a place to stay can be very detrimental. And so I'm just glad for that opportunity. And together with our staff at REST, we support over 200 youth on an annual basis. And the stories and just the impact has just been amazing. And it reminds me every day that the work that I'm doing is needed. And I am actually, impacting lives, which is what matters. I am making a difference for our next generation. I just said so much.
No, that was wonderful. Forgive me. There is rain and a couple other things outside, so I muted myself. Yeah, no, wonderful. I mean, if I had more time, I would talk a little bit more about some things that trigger some of my thoughts, but I do want to move on because I see your passion and I feel it. So I wanted to talk a little about, or have you share a little bit about your personal mission and vision.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, our mission is to really help raise BIPOC youth out of housing insecurity in Peel. We started off in Peel and with our, just starting off, and we've been doing this now for close to 8 years. We are discovering that there's just such a high demand for services beyond the region of Peel. So more strategically in our strategic goal as an organization is the ability to really extend our services to different cities who they do lack options or solutions for the issue of homelessness, especially around BIPOC youth. Let me just highlight here that, the cultural appropriate response is also necessary. And what we are seeing based on the data is that a number of Black youth are overrepresented. So I'm speaking about the Greater Toronto area. Black youth are overrepresented across the shelter systems in the Greater Toronto area. And from Rest Center's perspective, more or less as a B3 organization, you find sanctuary when they come to us. And the reason why they find sanctuary is because they get to relate to workers that look like them. They get to relate to workers who understand their journey. They get to work with workers who understand some of the circumstances that they have faced, who have lived experience. I have lived experience myself as a young Black female who migrated to Canada. I came to Canada when I was age 20. I came to Canada to join my family in order for me to be able to further my education. That was the dream. And I think that for a lot of our Black youth, that's their dream. At least some of a number of Black youth that we serve, that's their dream. They do have that potential. They do have that academic aspiration. Now, I'm not veering off, but just take for instance, there's a young man who's currently in our program, and he's currently in high school. And I think Peterborough, the college in Peterborough, came and they saw him play, and they saw that he's such a youth with such great aspirations around basketball. So they asked him to come to Peterborough for a tryout so that they could give him a scholarship. His case manager in West, we were so excited. However, as a young man, Peterborough, he lives in Peel. There was no way for him to get to Peterborough. He doesn't have the ability or the family support to accompany him. It's like 4 hours to take the train to get there, and to drive there, probably, don't quote me, could be 2 hours. But what Res did is, his case manager was willing to go, and we say, yes, please go with him, because our goal is really to see Black youth thrive. I think for too long, we have been the ones that have been marginalized, and too many of our Black young children are just falling between the cracks because there are just not enough supports and services to be able to empower and help them to fulfill their potential. And so he's on his way to getting a scholarship because he's such a great basketballer. Now, if Res wasn't available, what would have happened to him? At this stage in his life, when he has an opportunity, he has a dream, he has an ambition. And that's what we're seeing from a number of the young people that come for our doors. They have a dream, they have an ambition. So going back to my story, I came to Canada with a dream, I came with an ambition, I came to further my education, was my dream, to go to university. And when I came to Canada to join my family, that was so short-lived, 11 months. At 11 months in Canada, not having employment, I started school. I had to stop school because guess what? I became homeless. I was literally left stranded. And for 2 years in my life, I could not continue my education journey because of housing instability. I had to find myself basically couch surfing, going from one space to another in the hope of finding stability. And also the challenges that came with being a new immigrant, not having Canadian work experience, having challenges, just being able to get employed. All of those challenges were things that I faced. Not having family support is something that I faced. So I know very well, many people see young people or hear about youth homelessness, and we tend to believe that, why are you homeless? Why are they on the street? Why do we need to help them? And the first thing that comes to a lot of us mind who are not knowledgeable about the situations of why youth are homeless is, this must be a rebellious youth. Why else are they homeless? Why else are they out of their parents' house? Well, I was not a rebellious youth. You could ask my mother. I was not a rebellious youth. I was a youth with a dream, right? I was a youth with a dream. And due to unfortunate circumstances, I found myself struggling with housing insecurity and having to put my dream on hold. And at that time in my life, how I wish that I had people who were able to just say, you know what, focus on your dream and let me help to provide, let me just help to undergird you. And so that's what Res does. And I'm just so glad that I have the opportunity now to do that for a number of young people coming for our doors, just to undergird them. We may not be able to solve all their problems, but one thing that I know that we hear from all of our clients, the fact that they know that Res cares, the fact that they feel belonged, the fact that they feel loved, the motivation, the fact that they know that people are rooting for them, and we are going above and beyond to ensure that they have the basic need of housing and all the other supports that they need, without family, without other, family support, parental support for many of them, to be able to just carve out a future for themselves. And so that's what we do. And that's my inspiration. And that's what our mission is, to be able to help just pull a lot of Black youth, as many as possible, out of housing insecurity, and just help them to be able to, go after the future that they dream of and fulfill their potential.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. That empathy. I kept hearing empathy, and definitely Sometimes you don't know until you have walked in their shoes, yet it shouldn't be that you have to have walked in someone's shoes to have an idea, or at least want to lift someone. So applause to you. Kudos, kudos. We've talked about your inspirations. We've talked about your mission. Can we talk a little bit about some major systematic issues in navigating the spaces, with youth and homelessness, particularly in your work where you're at? You said you've been doing this for 8 years, and I know you have probably many stories, trials and tribulations.
Yes, and I think one of the biggest systematic issues that we are faced with that makes this work harder day by day is the housing crisis and unaffordability. The fact that housing in Canada is so unaffordable. The average population, even at an income of $30 an hour, I'm a part of a number of Facebook groups around housing, including rental groups, because of the fact that we're always seeking for landlords in the community for youth. And only yesterday I was on a group, and somebody put in, I'm not sure what year it is, or in the 50s, that houses was like $7,000 something, and people were responding. I was reading the comments. Somebody said, well, at that time, minimum wage was $1 an hour, and people were just comparing whether it's worse now. And of course, we know it's worse now than it was then. But one of the comments that I read there that I really can identify with, somebody said that, look, today you can have two individuals making $30 an hour, a husband and a wife, and they cannot achieve the dream of home ownership. And even at that income, it's even so challenging to even rent. Now, when we think about poverty, poverty is a systematic issue. It is a systematic issue. And I feel like that issue is like being perpetuated, and it's making it much more challenging to break out of that cycle of poverty. So when we think about young people who it's no fault of their own, however, the system had been set up that housing is so unaffordable, and being tasked with a responsibility at grade 12 or even your first year in college, let alone to be responsible to paying $1,000 a month when you don't even have a career, you haven't even figured out your career path, you're making minimum wage, and you're stuck with thinking survival, 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 survival. It makes it much more challenging to break out of the cycle of poverty. It makes it much more difficult to break out of the cycle of poverty. People should not be paying more than 30% of their household income towards a space to live, when housing is a human right. However, in Canada, sometimes your full income goes into housing. Your full income. And you have people who are hustling 2-3 jobs just in order for them to be able to make ends meet. And these are adults. How much more young people? I'll give you a scenario. We work with landlords to be able to house youth. We had a particular landlord who had a duplex, who heard about us, and it's a landlord from the Black community. She heard about us and the work that we did. And she's like, you know what? I feel this is an amazing initiative and I want to support. I have a duplex, and she quoted us $5,200 a month for that duplex. That duplex could have housed 6 young people at $5,200 a month, plus utilities, okay? So when I tell you that it's about $1,000 plus to be able to acquire spaces for young people, whether we're getting landlords who are coming forth with houses, if you put 6 young people in a place, it's $5,200 plus utilities, you're about $1,000 a month already. So the landlord came to us, and we were very excited about the opportunity to be able to just help to house young people more, because we are currently even growing a waiting list. And the reason for our waiting list is really because of the fact that the young people coming to us are just not financially prepared. And how can you expect financial preparedness from a young person for this kind of housing market? So the landlord came to us, and we didn't hear from her for a while, and we were very anxious because we wanted to, we have youth who are waiting for housing. And when we reconnected with the landlord, she said to us, you know what, like, I've had a nurse who came to me and is interested in the space. And the nurse have not been successful with being able to rent an apartment because the income requirement of her to have an apartment, she does not have it. And the landlords would not rent for her. So she said to me, the nurse is willing to give her $1,250, $1,250 for one room for herself, $1,250 for one room for her daughter. That's $2,500 a month to live in a shared space. $2,500 a month and not being dignified with your own apartment. You still have to share kitchen. You still have to share living room. You still have to share bathroom. This is what we're living in Canada right now. This is what we're faced with in Peel region. And this is what young people who are just starting off, haven't even started off their life. So we can see that this is a systematic issue. And it's unfair and it's unjust that young people have to face so much financial pressure just to be able to leave when they are all alone. They do not have parents. There is no parents to help them. They don't have a guarantor. There is no mother's house to rent to because they're all alone. It's unfair. So that's one of the, the biggest issues is the unaffordability of housing right now, right? And just to put it out here, because many people, like I said, they think of youth and they think that, well, why are they homeless? One of the streams is, youth aging out of foster care. They age out of foster care and then they are faced with this housing market, right? Like how do they stand a chance? With all the barriers set up against them, plus the financial barrier being one of the biggest.
Yes. I hear it. You hit it, with the inaffordability. The other is just stepping out for the first time in trying to, find your way. That's also employment, which would be lucrative enough to be able to compensate for all those things. And many, as you just said, a nurse face the same things.
Imagine a nurse.
Like
you said, it's like, at 17, at 18, like, lucrative employment is not yet an option for you because you do not have the job skills, you do not have the education, you may not have the, the trade certificate because you're just in grade 12, you're just starting out. So the types of jobs that may be available are more minimum wage jobs. And with a minimum wage job, you cannot afford a place to stay. Or even if you have a minimum wage job and you have to pay $1,200 a month for a room, it makes it hard to get or break out of the cycle of poverty. And so sometimes you have to choose
basic needs.
Leaving over the education, leaving over the aspirations and the dreams because they just gotta get by, which is so sad. And so we are actually wasting human capital. Let's just say that. Because when the supports and the services are not there for young people who have the ability to be the future leaders of Canada tomorrow, youth who have the potential to rise above the obstacles, to be a voice, to be able to do great things that will change our lives. And for any Black person listening, I just want to say that these are our leaders that are perishing under these burdens every day. These are our leaders. This is our future. The young people are our future. And so we need to, just to forget I'm not saying forget the government. We need the government, but just to sensitize our community to know that these are our leaders. This is our future. And if we don't get behind them to provide the supports that they need to help to alleviate some of those barriers, then we are just causing our own human potential to really perish. And I hope that those who are listening to me today get a sense that homelessness is not a choice. Homelessness is not a choice. Many of the young people facing homelessness are victims of circumstances. The traumas are unheard of. I have groups of siblings coming into our services. We saw about 4 groups of siblings by the end of 2022. And we're seeing more groups of siblings coming in for supports. One group of siblings came in, the mother was incarcerated. That's 4 siblings. The mother got incarcerated, and guess what happened to them? They were still in high school. they were still just starting college. What happens? No place to stay. Landlords will not rent to them. They do not have the financial means to be able to acquire a place. Rest Center, they got referred to Rest Center. And I'm grateful for Rest, and I'm so grateful to be a part of that organization. I'm grateful for a great team that we were able to help, one, get the siblings house, and then provide even the counseling that is necessary, because it's a trauma. You know, your mother got incarcerated and now you're homeless. We had another group of siblings. It's still 4 siblings. Guess what? It was a sudden death. They lost their mother. It was a sudden death. The mother went out, they said, and did not come back. And they were left. One of them is still in high school. She's just in grade 12 right now. The other just started college doing social work, you know, and all of a sudden they had to bear financial responsibility that they were not prepared for. And with lack of housing options for youth, they became homeless and they came into our services. Again, grateful for the great staff that we have and for those who have been supporting us financially to be able to do this. We were able to get them housed and then help them. And we have to also help them to navigate independence and helping to provide the skills. And we do a life skill training, everything from cooking to living on a budget, to understanding what your tenant right is, tenant education. We teach them how to be good tenants. You know, we do things like even housekeeping, you know, how to keep the house clean, how to make it. We do all of that to really help them to succeed. And so it's necessary. So I want to say to our Black community that is listening to me right now, that we have to act. We have to act, and we have to get behind and support organizations like Rest that are ensuring that our future is not being perished because of what's happening to them. And we are providing the supports that are necessary to help them to launch them on a more positive path towards independence. Because I do believe that those that we are making a way for and helping in the time that they are most vulnerable, we are only helping to shelter human potential, because they have great aspirations, they do have a hope, and they do deserve support to be able to fulfill their potential. Thank you.
Wonderful. And we have to let down our assumptions and our preconceived notions and biases and all those things that, oh, you know, they made it themselves. We all deserve a lift up. We all do. So I've been hearing a lot about your challenges and your barriers, and I'm hearing about what you have done, the life skills and all the things that you're doing. Do you have some set priorities that you have right now for your work and for your team moving forward? Or even we can say your ultimate goal as you look forward in your trajectory?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. For us right now, like, you know, as an infant organization, I would say infant. I like to say that we're small but mighty. We are small, but we are mighty. And it's a known fact that, you know, B3 organizations, they really struggle to be able to have the financial supports to be able to help to scale the organization. Right now, based on the demand and the numbers that we're dealing with, we do not have the full operational capacity to do it. So one of our goals is really to help to secure more funding so that we could build operational capacity to deal with the demand. Another goal for us is, you know, we are looking at also scaling our services, because we definitely know that there needs to be more cultural appropriate responses around homelessness, specifically for Black youth. And it's something that is currently lacking in the sector. And as a group, you know, who specializes in providing that cultural appropriate response for Black youth, we're looking to really scale and partner with other agencies to be able to ensure that Black youth have that cultural appropriate response that is necessary to help them while navigating the housing space. So that's another goal of Rest at the moment. That's some of our goals right now, and some of our, and also just really elevating our voices and bringing more light to the fact that this is a problem in our community that exists. And for me as a Black woman and a part of the Black community, it really hurts me that, you know, it hurts me that there is not a lot of awareness that this is a problem that exists, because we speak to people all the time. I've spoken to people all the time, including people in the Black community, and people, they do not usually know that when you say Black youth homelessness, they're like, what are you talking about? You know, you kind of get that response, like Black youth homelessness, especially in the region where we are situated. And why it's not something that is so visible, it's because there's a lot of hidden homelessness. Right? There's a lot of hidden homelessness. That's the typology. And so people, if you go down to Toronto, maybe you might see youth penny handling and see youth on the street. And you know, you may see the youth who struggle, like chronic homelessness, usually youth probably who struggle with, you know, severe mental health issues. And so this is what people are looking for to think that there is a problem. Or we saw, like, for example, like, okay, like the case of the refugees, like on the street, and people think, when people see that, you know, it's very visible, then they're like, okay, yes. But I want to say here that majority, the greater population of people experiencing homelessness is not the chronic or those sleeping on the streets, are those who are in the hidden home. They are faced with hidden homelessness. And what that means is every night they're just bouncing from place to place, looking for a place to stay. There is no stability. At times they may even sleep in the gym, right? At times they may sleep under the bridge because they're just looking for a place. At times, maybe one friend or one family, and some of the youth we are, you know, we serve, that's some of the cases. You know, a friend, parent would say, okay, you could stay here, but for 1 week and you gotta go, right? And including, we have, they're still homeless because the emergency shelter is it's meant to be a temporary, it's supposed to be a temporary solution. It's not permanent. And so youth in the emergency shelters are still homeless, right? And if you think about yourself, if you've never faced homelessness before, you need stability. Everybody needs stability. It gives a peace of mind. You know, you have the ability to think about your future when you're not thinking about tonight, I don't have a place to stay, where I'm going to stay. In Canada, in those kind of weathers, to think about that, okay, you gotta be going from place to place. And also when you go from place to place, you have to be making sure you carry a bag. And some of the youth coming in, because of the instability, they have no IDs, they have lost their ID, they cannot connect with jobs. How could you connect with jobs when you're just thinking about, I need a place to stay? You're going from here, everywhere just for a place to stay. And so this is something that we know that is happening, the hidden homelessness, and this is the typology that most of our clients fit in. They're not on, you don't see them on the street, but they're living precariously. They're couch surfing. They're going from place to place. There's no stability. We had a young man, you know, like we have advocated for some of our young people with the school system, because the school system, they're going to school. Sometimes they're late. Sometimes they miss an exam. Sometimes they're not showing up, and the teachers do not know that they're faced with homelessness. And so we've had to advocate and ask and you know, write letters to say that this is the hardship that they're facing. Please give them another chance. And yes, the school system have, I mean, there's not a time that we've advocated that they've said no, but think about it. The school is not aware that a number of the young people showing up, missing school, showing up late, have that problem. They have no place to go to in the night, right? And so that's the reality. That's what we're faced with right now with most of our clients. And I'm so sorry to say I forgot where I started. I don't remember the question I was answering.
Oh no, it's okay. You're touching on it. It was you've been talking about some key priorities, and basically, you know, some of the things that you and your team. Yeah,
and another thing too for us, let me say, another thing as a key priority is like we've been really advocating for more subsidies towards youth, because that's the only way that they could be housed. And also because there is such a lack of options and housing is so unaffordable. One of the other things that's part of our strategic plan right now is also we currently have a consultant who is actually building a case and doing the research to provide us with the information about affordable housing development. So that's another thing that's in the pipeline for us. We're also just doing the proper research and trying to build our capacity as an organization around affordable housing development.
Yes, a little of my 2 cents, only from my own experience. I don't want to take up, this is your interview yet. Becoming a landlord yourself. I used to have an internship where they were social workers doing the work with homeless adults with mental health or co-occurring disease. So they went into individual places where they rehabbed, and then they placed the people from the shelter into that also gave them the wraparound services. So they became the landlord and partnered with another agency to give the services. And in the community that I was, they were doing single occupancy, but of course things started to change, and we're talking, early the early 2000s until the current day. So now they moved into individual, large units, and then they moved into families because of the emancipation situation, where some students, are, or have to emancipate themselves from a family member or whatever. So as you said, hidden, but maybe that's an ultimate, because this leads me to my last question about, what you see or feel that the future of youth development in Canada can be, or what you see, especially with you and your agency organization being key proponents on advocacy and doing the work.
Based on the space that I'm in specifically, I think it's we need to know that it's unjust for us to think of permanency and youth development when basic needs are not being met. Right? If we think of Maslow hierarchy, we need basic needs has to be met, and housing is part of that basic need. It's unjust to have this expectation of our young people to be able to, arise to their full potential when they are struggling and they do not have housing, they do not have food. And so for me, as an advocate for housing for youth, I will say that we want to see more empathy from the general public around youth homelessness. Two, we need to see all levels of government, all levels, federal, municipal, provincial, come together and do a lot more to address the present housing crisis. We need much more funding to go into providing solutions, especially for marginalized groups. We need to see more transitional housing for youth, because some youth also who are faced with mental health problems, they do not have options. And the solution that REST provides by putting them in, spaces with landlords is not appropriate. And so we need more investments in things like transitional housing for youth who are experiencing homelessness. And we need to see more partnership with organizations who are working towards solutions to bring to youth who are experiencing homelessness. So that is what I want to see in terms of youth development, and just in terms of the Black community. I want to see more collaboration. I want to see more collaboration with other groups that we are working to address this problem of ensuring that Black youth in Canada have the ability to thrive. And so more collaboration would just help us to foster relationships and create a bigger and greater impact. So that's something else I would like to see.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes. So as we come to a close, I want to give you one final question. And this would be your closing thoughts, your call to action. You already kind of started your call to action by, listing the things that are key. So what are some final thoughts that you would want beyond what you said? We talked a lot about the youth and standing in the empathy for them and understanding circumstances that lead to it. So if we know adults face it, it's much more harder for a youth who has things that are hidden in society or overlooked in a way that are assumptions. You have the lack of affordable housing, you have the lack of funding, you talked about partnership. Is there anything else that you would call to action, or as I just asked, closing thought?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our current model, which is the Bridge of Hope model, we are unable to achieve the goal to house youth without partnership with landlords in the community. And landlords are a big key part of our success, the fact that they are willing to partner with us and rent these spaces to our youth. So we're calling for landlords in the Black community. We're really looking for bridge builders in our program. Landlords have the ability to be a bridge builder. And what a bridge builder looks like is a landlord who has a space available, who can rent to the youth, but are willing to provide some level of mentorship. And we do the training to the landlords on how that can be done, like, you know, critical mentoring. We're not asking you to step in and be a parent, but we're asking, you know, with the permission of the youth, that ability to provide some level of mentorship. So we're looking for more bridge builders in the Black community. I'll give you an example. We had a young man, and he faced a lot of trauma, okay? I'm not saying this to scare anybody, but he faced a lot of trauma. And when he came to rest, he felt a lot of defeat because he had been in the shelter for such a long time and was also facing a lot of discrimination by landlords in the market. So he kept on looking for a space to rent, and every time he tried to look for it, he would go and he would be turned down by landlords, because it's, you know, being a youth who's in a shelter, who's homeless, on top of that being Black and being a Black male, you should understand the layers and the layers of barrier and the discrimination. It's one thing to be homeless, is another thing to be Black, and plus another thing to be a Black male and a young person. And so he came into our services, and at a place where he was really hopeless because he had been trying to get out of the shelter for a while. And so when he came into our services, we were able to successfully get a landlord to work with. And this time we had actually a bridge builder, a landlord who was also open to providing some level of mentorship. And this young person stayed with the landlord, and the relationship really thrived. And he stayed there for over 2 years, I think up to 2 years. And now he's moved, he's living independently successfully. But one of the testimonials that he gave us, which just shows the impact that we could have for our youth, when he first got into housing and he got placed with a landlord, he was experiencing some level of depression and distress, right? He was experiencing some of that. And he said that he had suicidal ideation in the process. But the only thing that stopped him from taking his life is the fact that he had a relationship with his landlord. And he couldn't fathom his landlord coming in and seeing that he took his life. That's the only thing that stopped him. That's the power, and that's the impact that we could have on young people. So we're calling out for not just landlords, but bridge builders. We spoke to a bridge builder just recently, which makes us excited, because every time we get a new bridge builder, it's like, rejoicing in our office. And she just said, you know what, I just want to give back to the Black community. I'm in a safe place. I am financially empowered. My spouse is financially empowered. I have no children. I've always considered foster care, but I didn't have. But I think with my lifestyle, having to be responsible for a child. But if it's a youth who also is supported by an organization, this is something that I would love. So if we have more like her out there, if you have spaces, you are financially empowered, so you can rent lower than the market rent, so that we would be able to house even more youth even faster. And you have the ability to be a bridge builder, and you are willing to even offer some level of mentorship with our training to the youth, then that would really help us to be able to provide options for youth even sooner. So we're calling out for more landlords, more people who have spaces, to really come alongside us and partner with us, so that we would be able to provide more hope more sooner for a number of young people coming in that are in need of housing. And I think the last thing I would say, if you don't have a space, if you don't have a space and you cannot do it, then you could always partner with us financially. We're a charity. You could go on our site, www.restcenters.org. We provide monthly subsidies. You will see on there that you could actually give a donation. I think it's like $15 a day to be able to ensure that a youth have a subsidy. You could help us to provide monthly food subsidies, which is something that we also do to help to alleviate some of the financial burdens, so that the youth can really focus on permanency and focus on being able to go through whether it's the education or the employment training or all of the different supports that are necessary to help to pave a path for them for the future. So I think I've said a lot today. Thank you so
Well,
much.
I thank you. I thank you so, so very much. We really, really appreciate your time and your remarkable leadership, Dagma. This is just unbelievable. And I continue to put to the Most High, all the greatness will fall in abundance without hands to be able to catch it. So that it will pour over into future and future, because I do believe, as you said, our youth are our future. And if we do not pour into them, what type of future do we have as we age? And we have to remember that. So
that's right.
As we do in the beginning, we with the interview, we acknowledge the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge that all that toiled without compassion and compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and the community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. And we give you much thanks, Dagma, for being a leader in the role you are, and we wish you the best in your forward movement. We thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ahmad. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to you.
You are so welcome.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
So you guys please send me a copy of the